reflection. Well, I'm Gülbeden Kulbay, and I'm a performer, performance artist, and community art worker. So I will start to present myself, and then I want to talk about what is community and community art, and the weight of the personal story, and end with performance art. So I want to tell you about my personal story, how I ended up in performance art, and that will also give you an insight to my method. So I was dancing a lot when I was a child in our living room in Alby. I say in Alby because I will talk about the community artwork that I made in my adulthood there. And later on, when I was 10, I started with judo, that is a Japanese martial art. And later in my teenage, I started to do break dance, and I was really physically active. And my mind was in dreaming of making art or doing something physical, but I didn't really have some kind of word for it. I was just doing many different things, and my curiosity will take me wherever. I started work in the restaurants when I was 14 years old. So every weekend I was working at some restaurants, and I did judo for 7 years, and I had the opportunity to meet people around Scandinavia and also in Europe. And I think I was around 22, 23. I was more and more interested in changing or giving perspective on the daily life I was in. So I was at the university, and I was in a very technical directed education for TV and film production. And I was slowly doing more and more content that were content of short films, documentaries that were more scattering a bit how it commonly was made. And I had a professor there that was like, Gülbeden, but this is art. I was like, okay. So in that moment, I had the word that what I was doing was something called art. So that was like kind of a starting point for me. So I want to talk about now how my now daily method has been developed from my background story. So now I'm working as a performer, and my method is very intuitive process, and where my experiences is my toolbox. So whenever I get a mission, I check in my toolbox, what do I have here? So while the process of image is developing, I'm always checking in my toolbox and also open up for what can I add to make this image happen, but also that it's very specific for that place and for that condition. So I want to talk more about community. So what is community? Because we all have different experiences what community is. In my perspective, it's I have several communities. My first community is my family. It is where there in early age I was in relation to others, other bodies, other humans. And I got to know who I am and who someone else was in that early age. So community was family, my closest family. And the more older I got, my community got larger and larger, with the school, with the judo club, the sports club, my working place, my school, my higher educations, new friends. For every also 5 years, I got new friends, and we were moving from one place to another with my family. So I had this community feeling always around me, also coming from a very big family, very big family with lots of relatives. So I had this very naturally, but also I want to think about together with you what makes a community, and what is my part of the community, because I'm also a part of a community in someone else's side of me. So I want to, for me, I have always sensed a kind of like that I can make a difference in somewhere where I am, hopefully, and also speak up. So for me as an artist, to make art is kind of action for the community, because when I feel some kind of concern that I concern someone else, that's my community. And when I attempt to interact, we have a connection. And from that connection, we can create together what kind of reality we want. My biggest challenge living in my community is isolation. We all have patterns around being social or anti-social. And I see this pattern of isolation is coming and going within us. Everyone is like having some part of this. So I've been struggling a bit with my own isolation patterns, how much I want to do this change, this social change within my arts, and how much I don't want to. So it's always, it's always relevant. So I want to go over to community art. So having sense of me being kind of having resources, because it is both personal resources as handcraft, or just being curious as well. I felt like I want to go do this community art. Like, I got to know this by my good friend Paloma Madrid, that there is an art form that is participatory, where you can encourage people at one site to be a part of an art project. And I was really excited, and I was a part first of her community art project as a dancer in a community art piece called Dance in Apartments, where we as a dance group were able to be lent out from a library as a book. So we were, yes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes left, okay. So I want to talk about, let's see, I made a community art piece called Alby Walk. That is a site-specific walk where people who lives in Alby, that is a suburb to Stockholm, how they were involved in early stage of the process to be the main art artists in this walk. So the people who came, they became guides, where the audience could ask questions about Alby. So the guides were answering the questions about where do you live? Is there a place in Alby that you've never been? And do you have a favorite place? So while the audience were in the room, in this studio that I rented for 3 months, the audience could have, they had a paper and asked these questions to the guide, and wrote down all these places this guide were talking about. So in this way, I could get the personal story from a local Alby living person, to have this personal story as a carrier of this community. So and also by doing this, this person can take this public space also and own it. And this is one of my purposes of being an artist, is also encourage people, whoever, to have their personal story as their art piece.
Okay, thanks, Gülbeden. I think that we should have those conversations for hours.
Yes.
I actually had a 1 hour conversation of each of you, at least. So I think that the subject is very broad and interesting. But now, Lia, please take the floor.
Yes, yes. I was thinking it's so exciting to see this element of a personal story emerging. Because I was hearing rather what you're talking about when you're saying about your life, yourself. And behind any kind of choice of activity or career, there is always a why, which is a personal why. And you started by saying you are you arrived there in Alby and you lived there, and then progressively you started trying to feel less isolated in where you were, whether it was within your community or not. So you wanted to come out of that particular sense of isolation. So that's your story. So you went and did judo, all sorts of things. 7 years with judo, that must have given you a lot of confidence that things can change. But change is terrifying, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, just look at what is happening around us. If I think of myself, when I left a small town in Italy to come to London, when I changed jobs, I made the choices of personal choices, career, etc. It's always terrifying. There is no other say. So how can we, as individuals, ourselves, or rather I rephrase, can then only people who have been through their personal story of having overcome this terrifying fear of change, can these people then, whether they are artists or not, we don't know, can only after they have overcome these fears, help the community and find ways of helping the community also to change their environment, to change the way they perceive their environment, and in that way to get them more involved in their daily activity. Am I correct in saying that an artist then maybe needs to have done work on itself also first?
Yeah.
Am I exactly?
I mean, yeah. What I think is my view on community is like, I have humans around me, and humans are my resources. It's like having a support group for me also to come over threats or different fears. So there is a dynamic. So when I don't have to be outside the community to come over that is that kind of isolation. I can be in the community and be a resource and also get resource. So we are there in together.
Yeah. But does it mean then if you involve yourself in an artistic project in a particular community or location, then you must be from there? Does it help if you know the environment somehow, if you have felt the same feelings about your environment as the communities you're working, or are we barking up the wrong tree, as we say in English? I'm saying no. Any artist can obviously come in a community depending on the methodology they choose.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, sometimes some community art pieces are really good if the artists that are leading the project has some kind of connection. And sometimes it's really good that, for example, in Tara's place, that it's not her place. Suddenly she saw something. Sometimes the perspectives have to come from outside, that there is the connection is there, not before or, yeah.
Yes. So, but there is, I like the way that you are digging into their personal story and you want to work through that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the dance. So how did that project work? You were like, you could be hired by somebody and then somebody invited you into their home?
Yeah, so we were landed out in the library. We were working together with Stockholm Library Association, and we were landed out as a book. So you could go to the library and loan us to your apartment. And then we came.
What happened? Because I remember working in Albion, Fitia, etc. They're very diverse and very culturally diverse, and not always intercultural. Sometimes there isn't much exchange or blending of communities. Sometimes, I don't know now. It was a long time ago anyway when I was there. But in your case, what happened? Let's say you are invited into a home of a Kurdish family. Which you don't know the background, maybe you know their food, maybe they presented you with food or some other things. What happened?
Yeah, there are so many different experiences, but sometimes we were invited for food first, and we had some food, or we said, let's have food later, but in a very, very, very soft, listening, intuitive way, interacting with the apartment, the home, the sacred home, and also not challenging. It's always challenging, but there is, when a person loans a dance group to come to your home, it's some kind of openness. Okay, you can come into my private space.
Yes.
But very gentle. So we had kind of a dance structure for 15-20 minutes, the score, and then afterwards we had a long talk. There were several times the talks were longer than the score.
And were the talks about generally how they felt about living there? Or were they, I don't know, gossiping about the neighbors from a different community?
No, it was very much about their own personal experiences, what happened to them when they saw 4 dancers interacting in the bedroom, in the toilet, living room. It was very personal stories.
Yes. And for you, what was your distance traveled? So let's say you're going there at 2 o'clock one afternoon or something, and you have been doing this maybe a month before. I'm curious about the change in you that this practice has caused as an artist and as an individual.
Yeah, for me, it has really sharpened my that experience, I made it for 2008, 2009, and then I did it later 2011 or 10, I don't remember really now. But those really specific experiences, being in other homes, it forced me to sharpen my listening, like, okay, use all my senses, because it's also, a home has its own soul. And to listen and to be, yeah, I mean, sensitive and like careful.
Is that why you developed the walk, the kind of the idea of walking project later on, I imagine?
Yeah, the walk, I mean, these experiences has also like, with the walk, I made several interviews and also had some kind of listening project as a strategy to like meet people. Who are you? Genius, like, I want to know who you are and I have attention for you. So by having this studio space in the center of Alby, having that place as a meeting platform, it made me, yeah, like meeting platform and listen to people. And with those stories, I could create this walk, like how the walk should be, and also invite these people to be the guide.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, so I'm interrupting again in interesting conversation. Walks as a methodology, really exciting. We've been using it in several projects lately. Woven Network is a collaboration of women working with the subject of pandemics in Scotland, in Ukraine, in Sweden, in Poland. This is really growing and mushrooming kind of project as Tara has experienced it, and all those methodologies are appearing in those projects. So we are kind of building a house of methodologies which are already existing in different places and which we are gathering in the existing collaborations. So I find it really interesting.